After Pakistan's bombing of Afghanistan, the Taliban is warning that if this continues, no trace of Pakistan will be left. As tensions rise between Pakistan and Afghanistan, there are war clouds forming over Iran. India is asking citizens to leave Iran as many people believe that after the embarrassment of the US Supreme Court knocking down his tariffs, Donald Trump may turn his attention to Iran. This age of volatility and what it might mean for India, we'll be talking to strategic affairs expert Sushant Sareen in a moment from now. I'm Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo story. On the program today, we look at this age of volatility. After the United States Supreme Court struck down Donald Trump's tariffs and he levied a flat 15% on all countries, including India, India has paused trade talks with the United States of America. Many people in America believe that Trump will next turn his attention on Iran. In fact, India is asking its citizens to leave Iran. This, even as tensions erupt between Pakistan and Afghanistan, the Taliban is warning Pakistan that no trace of it will be left if Pakistan continues its aggression. Remember, over the weekend, Pakistan bombed Afghanistan and civilians were in fact eliminated in that strike. Those are the images that you're seeing of that strike. The neighborhood is volatile. The world is volatile. There is uncertainty in the wake of the US Supreme Court decision on Trump's tariffs, and it's widely expected that Trump could be turning his attention to Iran. In the midst of all of this, Prime Minister Modi is headed to Israel, where he will be meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu. It is also important to note that India recently joined 100 countries in signing a condemnation, a criticism of Israel's activities in the West Bank. So a lot to talk about. Let me introduce our newsmaker on the program today. Sushant Sareen is with us. There he is, one of India's best known strategic minds who doesn't pull his punches at all. Sushant, always good to see you. Let me start with the immediate neighborhood. We've seen Pakistan bombing Afghanistan over the weekend. We've seen the Taliban hitting back. What do you make? And we've seen, of course, our own security personnel take out Jaish terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir. What do you make of what is happening in the immediate neighborhood between Pakistan and Afghanistan and that very strong statement from the Taliban?
So, Barkha, one, I think it's very clear to me that thank God we are living in India, which is probably one of the few stable countries right now. With all our problems and everything, uh, at least there is a strong sense of stability out here. But if you look at our western borderlands, and we start with the immediate neighborhood and go all the way to West Asia. uh, it's a crisis which is unfolding at an alarming speed, and nobody really knows where this thing is going to settle. But on the AFPAC front, see, one, I'm not going to shed any tears for what the Pakistanis are going through, because this is something they've called upon themselves. It's their myopic, strategic worldview which has led them to this pass. Afghanistan is a country which is best left alone, and you hope that they leave you alone. And what the Pakistanis are doing is they're not thinking this thing through. So it's all very well to show that typical bluster which generals are notorious for, um, and not think of the second, third, fourth order effects of the actions you're going to be taking. So yes, there is a certain wave of terrorism which is coming in from Afghanistan, or at least allegedly from Afghanistan, but I think a lot of it is now located within the Pakistani frontier. So there is this wave of terrorism which has hit Pakistan, which is actually a blowback of what the Pakistanis have been flirting with for almost 40, 50 years now. They've destroyed Afghanistan, with this kind of games which they've been playing. But uh, for the Pakistanis to react in the way they are reacting, they're clearly not thinking this thing through. So they're playing to the gallery at home. And it's not just Donald Trump who might start a war because he wants to deflect attention from certain domestic problems. The Pakistani state, or the Pakistani deep state, is equally adept at doing the same thing. and quite clearly, given the fact that the economic numbers are actually reaching its nadir, there politically you have probably the most unpopular government ever in power. It holds nothing. They've completely censored the media. There is no freedom of speech, expression, nothing in that country. And you have a wave of terror strikes taking place inside Pakistan, which are not sustainable. I will give the Pakistanis that they will have to do something about it. But is going and bombing Afghanistan the answer to what they are doing? Uh, Look, we started hitting out at Pakistan and the terror camps in Pakistan, and which actually is kind of poetic justice to what is happening in Pakistan now. And we have shown patience. Barkha, people very often forget that from the 1980s, the Pakistanis have been inflicting terrorism on us. People have forgotten about Punjab, but it starts in the 1980s. And it's almost 50 years that we have been facing with Pakistani terrorism. And I'm not even going to the earlier decades when they used to use the erstwhile East Pakistan to sponsor trouble in the northeastern states. Now, the Pakistanis have gone and bombed Afghanistan. Uh, so have they thought this through? And I don't think they have, because what they are doing is this is a disaster which is unfolding in slow motion as far as Pakistan is concerned. There is a lot of anger in the Pashtun areas of Pakistan against the Punjabi domination and this army, which is essentially a Punjabi army because the entire ethos is that of the Punjab. And the way the guys have been behaving with the civilians in the Pashtun areas and with the Afghans, and the kind of derogatory language which they use, the kind of racist tropes which they use, all of this is causing a lot of anger in the Pashtun areas. Uh, the fact that the Taliban, or the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan rather, are playing their cards pretty smartly, in the sense that not targeting civilians. Now compare that to what the Pakistanis have done. They are targeting civilians. There is a lot of collateral damage inside Pakistan because of mortar attacks, because of artillery shelling, and other kind of heavy weaponry that the Pakistanis have been using. There is a lot of civilian casualty taking place. They have this. They have this military doctrine, you can call it, of first depopulating an area, which means that you take out hundreds of thousands of people from a particular area to carry out operations in that area. And when they go in, they blast about everything which is left out there, and then they don't rebuild it. We've seen that it's kept created a lot of angst in the other tribal agencies, or the erstwhile tribal agencies now, which are referred to as tribal districts. It's caused a lot of heartburn out there because you've destroyed hundreds of years old houses, and you've given them 5 or 6 or 10 lakhs of rupees to rebuild, and you can't even build one room in that much money. Pakistani rupee in any case is worthless. So point is that the kind of as of now, at least on the face of it, the Taliban say that, look, we are not doing anything. We are not allowing anybody to go. There have been edicts which have been issued by the Taliban clergy saying that no Afghan should participate in these conflicts anywhere outside Afghan territory. But whether now again, there is a certain amount of ambiguity whether the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa area is uh, not Afghan territory, or is it Afghan territory. They have claims on it. So you could hide behind that ambiguity. But the fact of the matter remains that a lot of the violence which is happening inside Pakistan is emanating from Pakistani soil. The
Yeah.
presence, and it's very clear. This is a standard operating procedure in Pakistan to blame it on somebody else. But the fact remains that if you go to South KP, for example, Barkha, it's like virtually liberated territory. The writ of the government does not run out there. The Taliban or the TTP guys have extended their footprint from Gilgit Baltistan. There are a number of incidents that have taken place out there. There are incidents which have taken place in POJK and in in the KP itself, in northern KP, central KP. There are incidents that are taking place out there, but South KP, there are about 6 or 7 districts, if I'm not mistaken. Out there, they've simply lost control. In all the erstwhile tribal districts or the tribal agencies, there is no writ of the government that runs anymore. The Taliban pretty much have the run of the place. They just don't have the kind of uh, territorial control they used to have before the last operation Zarbe started, when they were literally holding territory. They're not holding territory as such, but they are holding sway over that territory in that sense.
So let me ask you this. You said Trump isn't the only one who might be looking to start a conflict to change the headline. Pakistan has two challenges. I mean, apart from a crumbling economy, two immediate narrative challenges. One is the situation in Balochistan, and one is what is happening with Imran Khan. The fact is that Imran Khan supporters have drummed up a fair bit of noise over the fact that he may be killed in prison. You've seen cricketing greats from all over the world speak up in his support. And in Balochistan, we've all seen the video of a captured Pakistani soldier begging the Pakistan army to not disown him, something the army in Pakistan is known to do. We've seen it from Kargil, to not even own their own men. Do you believe that their conflict with Afghanistan is linked to these two developments?
Not See, Imran Khan is more of a personal kind of a conflict. It's a political and personal conflict. Uh, Personal in the sense that politics in Pakistan has now become personal animosity. It's between Asim Munir and Imran Khan. It's between the Sharifs and Imran Khan, and no quarter is given. And there is none of those old social graces which used to. Not that in Pakistan there were ever those social graces, because I remember in the 90s how Benazir Bhutto and Nawaz Sharif used to deal with each other. Nawaz Sharif is now taking a holier than thou attitude, but he would unleash, his dogs of war, foul-mouthed people like Sheikh Rashid and others against Benazir Bhutto,
Yeah.
and they would make sexual innuendos and all kinds of other things against her. And then, Benazir imprisoned his father, did all kinds of other things against them. So there has always been, what some at one point of time we used to see in Haryana politics, that the moment you win the election, the first thing you do was that you put your rival into jail, because it was not the governor swearing you in that stamped your authority, it was putting your rival in jail that stamped your authority. So that same thing happens in Pakistan, right? So there is that culture out there, but now it's become even more vicious. So that is at a political, personal kind of politics, what is happening with Imran Khan. But the only problem is that if the Sharifs had some degree of popularity and the army was popular, they could carry this thing through. But the problem is that they do not have the popular approval. So if they want to take any kind of tough measures, uh, they simply do not have the public support behind them. Forget about what all these jokers on Pakistani television try and drum up support. That is not what the reality is. And one indication of how uh, angry people are is, if you have followed this story about the princess of Pakistan, the queen bee of Pakistan, Maryam Nawaz Sharif, buying this really nice, swanky personal, jet for herself so that she can
Correct.
place to play in a country where it's one of the few countries in the world where poverty has risen,
Yeah.
right? It's one of the few countries in the world where unemployment is, by official numbers, 7%, but independent economists in Pakistan have calculated it at over 22%. Okay?
Yeah.
22% unemployment. Companies are closing down, they're shutting shop and leaving, factories are closing down. In a country like that, where economic distress levels have reached sky high levels, you are so utterly tone deaf to what people are saying that you go and buy a jet for yourself. And then you have these really clownish women who surround Maryam Nawaz Sharif, who say, this is part of an airline which we are starting. Have you heard of any airline which has executive jets?
Hmm.
I'd love to know one which charges me Indigo fares for an executive jet. Uh, but the point is that, this is the kind of approach which they have. So this is the political side of it. But then you come down to Balochistan, where the standard response of the Punjabi, colonized mind is that, or the imperial mind, not the colonized mind, it's the imperial mind, is that Balochistan is a colony and how dare they stand up against us. And that, if force has not worked, we will use more force and then more force. We will demolish houses, we will disappear people, we will catch hold of 60, 70-year-old women and disappear them, we will torture them, we will use families to blackmail people. All kinds of things are being happening in Balochistan. Okay. And if they think, and they've been doing this for 25 years now, and what has happened is that the resistance in Balochistan and the anger in Balochistan and the alienation of the Baloch people has only increased. It has reached a point where, I don't think, unless you are a quisling like this guy Sarfaraz Bukti and some of these other fellows who are members of death squads and who have blood of the Baloch on their hands, unless you are one of those characters who get their money from the Pakistan army and fat contracts to loot the place, there is hardly a Baloch who stands by the Pakistani state anymore. The complete alienation out there. So, and the response of the Punjabi elite in Lahore is beat them more, butcher them, kill them, bomb them, do whatever you need to do. Basically, exterminate the Baloch to solve the Baloch problem. Now, okay, maybe you can do it in Balochistan. You've tried it, at least in the past, it hasn't worked. You can try again. But then you come to KP. Out there, again, the same approach is being followed. There is no popular, Barkha, when last time the operations were taking place, when the military would carry out these scorched earth operations to eliminate the TTP characters. And I'm not talking about the 2013, 2014, the Zarbe Azb operations and the subsequent operations. At that point of time, there was popular support. In Swat, for example, something like, I think, 2.5 million, maybe 3 million people, about 25, 30 lakh people actually vacated that entire area and came out so that the army could go in and carry out operations. And the idea was that the army will clean it up and, peace will reign. Now, you've tried those kind of operations and they haven't worked. And you want people to constantly give up their homes, come out so that you can carry out operations, and then you hobnob with the terrorists, you give them a free pass. About an year back or 2 years back, the police guys started protesting in southern KP. They said we refuse to participate. There was a police strike. And why were the cops striking? Because they said, we catch hold of terrorists, and then the ISI guys come and the army guys come and say, these are our people, let them go. So there was a lot of resentment within the police that what the hell are you trying to do out here? So, these double games, which, these guys think that hum bahut chalak hain, they're very clever. Most of the Fauji's, the problem with them is that, they're basically high school pass characters. Yeah. They haven't learned how human psychology works, how you deal with people. Politicians, you can abuse them as much as you want, but they have some idea of how to take people along with them. Okay. uh, the generals don't. They have, absolutely, they think they can wave their stick around and everything will happen. And it doesn't happen like that. You don't have parade ground solutions in politics. You have parade ground solutions only on the parade ground. So the problem for them is going to be that they are reaching a point where they're alienating the people. If they want to carry out operations, there is very strong resistance. The people are not ready to vacate their houses. The army does not have the ability to go in and do the kind of operations that the Indian army has managed to do in many of these hotspots, and try and ensure that you don't use excessive force. But these guys go and bomb, they use helicopter gunships, they use tanks, artillery, all kinds of things. Now, with with Afghanistan being targeted, all that you need is for the Afghan government out there to say, okay, fine, we are now in a completely hostile situation with the Pakistanis, and there are no rules of the game. And
Yeah,
then what are the Pakistanis going to do? Are they going to continue bombing the Afghans? How well did it work for the Americans? One.
yeah.
Second, if they bomb the Afghans, then the Afghans will feel free to, completely open up the floodgates of all these characters to go and hit Pakistan and give them safe sanctuary. So, does the
Mm,
Pakistan army then go into Afghanistan? Can it manage that with the kind of economy it
mm,
has? And they are already accusing their friends and allies and partners in the Middle East, countries like the UAE, countries like Qatar, are now being blamed for what is happening inside Pakistan. So anybody who does not necessarily agree with Pakistan, except for that idiot Erdogan, uh, everybody who does not agree with Pakistan is labeled an enemy. And anybody who uh, gives them some sage counsel is labeled an enemy. Anybody who says that, listen, you guys need to handle this situation in a different way than what you've been
yeah.
handling is declared an enemy. So UAE is a new enemy, Qatar is a new enemy, and as you go along, you will see other countries which are not ready to take sides being labeled the enemy. And
What do you think? What do you think? India has, of course, reacted sharply to Pakistan's bombing of Afghanistan. India has recently sort of begun its re-engagement process with the Taliban. We had a high-profile, highly contested visit by the Taliban leadership to India. What might India's cards be at this moment?
no, I think India will and India should, you know, uh, continue its engagement with the Taliban to the extent that we can assist them uh, to resist the bullying by Pakistan. So, for example, they've stopped taking all medicines from Pakistan. Most of those medicines are fake, anyways, which the
Hmm.
Pakistanis are selling in Afghanistan. So, we have given them assurances that we will supply them with medicines, we will supply them with many of the other stuff. There'll be many things that we can't do. I think the Afghans are smart enough and sensible enough to understand that there are certain limits to what we can do. Uh, can we do something for them militarily? I'm not so sure. I'm not even sure if anybody in the government will be inclined to doing that. But yeah, maybe some degree of economic support and political diplomatic support, I think we'll be ready to do. Again, Barkha, I think it needs to be made very clear that does not mean that we approve of everything that the Taliban stand
I was
for.
just going to say the Taliban's record on women
Yeah,
absolutely abhorrent. I think they just legalized wife beating, basically, right? Not to put too fine a point on it, and so it's a very difficult sort of navigation for India because there's no relation on values, but the values-based diplomatic order has collapsed anyway. Shared values-based diplomatic order.
so
So
where
how do we
exactly?
handle this?
No, so look, I think there is a principle in diplomacy that engagement is non endorsement, right? So we will engage them because there are vital interests attached. Uh,
Correct.
we will not prescribe anything to them that this is what you should do, otherwise, we will not engage with you. But yes, as friends, we will counsel them to soften some of the kind of policies they followed. But Barkal, again, my point is, look, I have kids, I have daughters, yeah, so there is no way I can endorse that kind of treatment of women, no question of it, okay.
Yeah.
And if I was to even attempt doing it, my wife will beat the hell out of me. But the fact of the
Correct.
matter is that I myself find those practices abhorrent. But then uh, the diktats of real make it incumbent on me to engage with the Taliban, to counsel them where they should soften their stand, where they need to make certain compromises. And I think within the Taliban ranks also, there is a large section of people who are not very comfortable with the kind of hardline policies that have been adopted
Hmm.
by the clergy out there. So there is some resistance even within Afghanistan. But look, again, just as I don't want somebody to come and tell me how I should run my country, okay? I have to give the same courtesy to another country with which I don't agree with and deal with them. Uh, I'm not going to hold cudgels on their behalf and say that whatever they're doing is right. Certainly not. But that does not mean that I will not engage with them where I cannot engage with them. I will engage with them because it's in my national interest, and I don't see any problem in that. I engage with so many countries, Barkha, where the political system or the social system or the religious system I might find abhorrent. I actually, if you ask me, I find the kind of woke policies in the Western countries where they say that parents will not decide what happens to their children, the state will decide. This is what used to happen in communist countries, where your
Hmm.
children were your children, they were the state's responsibility. I don't agree with that. Do I stop dealing with America because they have policies like this, or used to have before Trump came in? At least this was one good thing Trump did. Uh, so, in Britain, for example, they're jailing people because somebody has tweeted something. I don't agree with it. Should I stop dealing with Britain because they have this kind of craziness going on in Britain where they protect rapists because they think, we must protect
I mean, the
rapists.
Taliban is Neanderthal. The Taliban is at an extreme of anything we're talking about.
So, so
But
one, one
that said, I agree with you that engagement is not endorsement, and I think that's the
bottom line is that between postmodern Neanderthals and the original OG ones, you take your pick what you want to. You have to deal with them. You have to
Yeah, you
deal with
have to
the
deal
world.
with the world. I agree. I agree with that. But now, talking about Trump, let's come to Iran for a moment, right? We've seen sort of the world now, including India, saying, "Okay, look, something is coming. This is the sense." This has been coming for a while, but there's some analysis that Trump needs a different headline, and how ridiculous that a war might be started because Trump needs to change the headline. But like wars have often been started for reasons of narrative control in history. What do you think? And what are the implications for us?
So, Barka, I
And let's also say Modi is going to be with meeting with Netanyahu on Wednesday. We are in a week where Prime Minister Modi is meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, and there are imminent sort of American strikes on Iran anticipated.
so yeah, so it's, pardon my language, but it's a shit show in the Middle East right now. Okay,
Yeah,
I don't think there's any other easy way of putting it. And
yeah,
frankly, you are literally, every country is literally traversing through minefields.
yeah.
Okay, trying to balance various things and various interests. But the thing is that, look, I think we should be very careful when we say that Trump will start a war simply because he wants to manage headlines. Again, Trump is a kind of a weird guy, but I think there are certain things which he has in his mind what he wants to do and what he wants to achieve. And I think on Iran, he thinks that there might be an opportunity to actually bring about some change out there so
Hmm.
that at least in his own, I'm not saying whether the way he thinks is right or wrong, but I suspect that in his own brain, he has reconciled himself to the fact that he can bring about a change for the better in the Middle East using Iran. Now, this is something similar to what happened in the 90s when, or the early 2000s when the Americans went into Iraq. That didn't work out very well for them.
Hmm.
They made a complete hash of it. And the same could happen if they were to attack Iran now. Look, again, if you just go by statements, then it would seem that the Iranians are just as locked and loaded as the Americans are. But are they? Do they have those capabilities?
Hmm.
Do the Americans have some other, uh, you know, uh, instruments to actually cut Iran to size? And that is one of the big fears because if you dismantle the Iranian state, uh, then how do you manage the fallout of that? That is something which is a scary prospect for the Pakistanis. That will be a scary prospect for all the countries in the region. If the Iranians have the capabilities to hit back, and they might well have, in that case, the kind of damage they bring about in the region and the kind of disruption they force on the region, How does that work out? Are the Arabs actually very apprehensive about an American attack, or
Hmm.
are they opposing an American attack and trying to lean in favor of diplomacy, simply because they want the Arab street to see that the rulers were not endorsing what the Americans were trying to do, and that they had washed their hands of any American action. But behind the scenes, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, go ahead, do it. Let's get rid of this regime in Iran, and then we'll see what happens, what follows from there. I don't know, because both kinds of stories have appeared. So, which is why I said it's a minefield right now. Nobody
Yeah.
knows who is on which side, who is going to do what. Is Trump just doing a show of force? But if you want just doing a show of force, you're bringing in two aircraft carrier groups along with a whole lot of other, wherewithal, military wherewithal in that region. Uh, you cannot do this indefinitely. Somewhere along the line, maybe, it's like what happened during Op Parakram, that you took your entire armed forces,
And then
but
you couldn't do anything. You couldn't do, you didn't cross.
hanging around out there for months altogether did not really serve any purpose. Whatever else people might say, the fact of the matter is it didn't serve any purpose. Either when you mobilize the army, you're going to go and attack, or you have to withdraw. And if you withdraw at this point in time without getting a deal of the kinds which everybody will say, yes, Trump has managed to achieve something really significant, that means your bluff has failed, you know.
I was just going to say that if Trump just does something cinematic, right? You have sort of a big dramatic show of force, but it doesn't cause the regime to change. What does Trump achieve?
And if he uses force and he still cannot ensure regime change, then what has he achieved?
Correct.
Right? That's even a bigger mess. You can probably still, there'll be enough people to say that, okay, Trump used coercive diplomacy and got something at least. But if you enter into a conflict which causes large scale devastation, now it is entirely possible that the Americans have worked it out. They know what the Iranian capabilities are. Yes, there will be some damage that the Iranians manage to do, but by and large, the Americans will manage to, literally clean up what is happening in Iran, get rid of, or at least significantly degrade the regime out there, attack their bases, attack their soldiers, all kinds of other things. And what is the Iranian hit back? They can only use missiles, long range missiles, against Israel, against some of the other countries. Uh, we don't know whether the Israelis are now in a position, or some of the other countries are in a position to fend off Iranian missiles. Some of them will definitely get through, which is why there are reports that some of the American bases, people have been pulled out of there to save American lives. But imagine a situation where one or two American ships get hit by anti-ship missiles, which the Iranians claim they possess. Then what happens? What will Trump do? Will he pull out? Will he put boots on the ground? Will he bomb the hell out of Iran? And then, if he was to do something like that, which is, I said, Trump is, he likes Asim Munir because both of them don't think through, the first order effect. They
But
don't.
if there's a prolonged Iran conflict, it gives Pakistan an opportunity to make itself relevant to the Americans in the same way that they tried to be when there was a prolonged American presence in Afghanistan. Is that something that should concern us?
Not necessarily. Look, again, the geography is different, right?
Hmm.
To reach Afghanistan, you had to use Pakistan airspace, you had to use Pakistani land, because
Yeah.
Afghanistan is a landlocked country. Iran was closed off to you. Pakistan was the most efficient route to reach Afghanistan. So you don't have the same compulsions when it comes to Iran. Uh, because Iran is on the sea, you have bases around the region. So I don't think you have the same kind of dependence on Pakistan which you had uh, uh, when it comes to Afghanistan. I would imagine that while Pakistan might try and make itself useful, but Pakistan will then have to see that if it is seen to be siding with the great Satan America against a fellow Muslim country, albeit a Shia country. How will the Shiite population, which is about 20% in Pakistan, uh, look at this?
I mean, but the
This
Shias of Pakistan are treated so poorly anyway, right?
Yeah, but the fact of the matter remains that they still have agency. The fact remains that they are in some fairly significant positions inside Pakistan. They're not a powerless community in that sense. They're not like the Hindus of Pakistan who can be, you can do whatever the hell you
Mm,
want to do to them, and there'll be no pushback. The Shiite community there will be a pushback from there.
mm,
So it's not going to be such an easy thing for the Pakistanis to simply throw in their lot with the US because they'll get a few $1 billion. Frankly, a few $1 billion is not going to solve their problems. Uh, it's not really going to work. They've got plenty of billions of dollars from all kinds of countries, but if those billions of dollars are going to be used to buy swanky jets for the army chief and the Princess
mm.
Maryam Nawaz Sharif, then those billions of dollars go waste. If they are going to be used to buy flats in London and villas
Yeah,
in France and chateaus in France and apartments in New York, as Asif Zardari has bought, then those billions of dollars mean nothing. So quite clearly, there is a serious problem which Pakistan is going to face. But I think the problem is not just limited to Pakistan. Barkha, look, uh, let's face it, if there is uh, destabilization in the Middle East, then there are repercussions for India as well. Now, there are these very disturbing rumors which one is hearing that, look, Mohammed bin Salman, uh, who I think has done fabulous work as far as Saudi Arabia is concerned, uh, is now uh, is now rethinking his position as far as Americans are concerned. And then there are some, again, I don't know the veracity of what
mm,
some people are talking, but there are these whispers that, every time somebody tries to defy the Americans, uh, something nasty happens. So, for all uh, who knows that there are some reports that there are people who do not take very kindly to MBS.
mm.
We don't know how that will play out. Um, so I think, and if Saudi Arabia was to get destabilized, God forbid, then there are serious problems, because then that means the whole
Yeah,
region starts getting destabilized. If Iran gets destabilized beyond a point, you might agree with the Iranians, you might not agree with the Islamic Republic. That's a completely different issue. But purely from a point of view of self-preservation, one has to say that, look, if Iran, which is geographically in the location it is, and is a significant player in the region, if you have the kind of destabilization happening in Iran, which happened earlier in Iraq, and you know how Iraq's destabilization, how it impacted on Syria, or how it impacted on the whole of Middle East,
yeah,
the kind of forces it unleashed, ISIS and all these other guys. Incidentally, many of them have now escaped from those camps in which they were kept, and nobody knows where they have gone. Which, incidentally, I think we've not played this enough. Out of about 15 or 20,000 people out there, I think maybe just one or two or a handful were from India. Uh,
yeah.
there was hardly anybody from India who had gone to join the ISIS. So I
Correct.
think some congratulations that we deserve, that at least our people have not been involved with these brutes. But the fact of the matter remains that they have now they have now dispersed. Nobody knows where they are anymore. Uh,
Yeah.
so so you can anticipate how things are going to get destabilized going forward.
Let
And
me
that's the situation.
Yeah, let me end by talking about these tariffs and like how nobody actually knows what it means, right? India has postponed trade talks. In American media, anchors are repeatedly asking reporters, so do countries get refunds? Do people who've paid get money back? You've had big American corporations actually filing, suing the government for refunds. Uh, Trump's 15% global levy actually lapses, after I think 150 days or something. Some people are saying India should renegotiate. Others are saying the deal is anyway now null and void. How do we make sense of this?
Nobody knows how, and this is the problem, Barkha. Look, one of the reasons why, in international, in global trade, what companies and what business players look for is a certain degree of certainty. They don't want uncertainty. They don't want uh, a situation where everything is very arbitrary. Today it's 10% duty, tomorrow it'll be 15, day after, which is what is happening with the United States. It starts with what, 25%, goes on to 50%, comes back to 25%, then 18%, now 10%, then
Hmm.
15%, and we don't know whether it's 15 or it's 18, because
Yeah,
some people say that you'll add the 3 point something, which is the
yeah,
MFNDF, to that 15, and then for how long? For 5 months, for 10
yeah,
months? Because जैसे हमारे यहाँ पर होता है that ordinances are reissued. He might say, okay, for one day it won't happen,
yeah,
and then next day I
yeah,
will use it again. Those kind of stupidities that happen out here will now happen in the largest economy of the world. Now,
yeah.
you imagine that if you're a business person and you have to engage in some production, some trade, something or the other, you don't know what your tariffs are, what your pricing structure is going to be, how does trade take place. The level of disruption this is going to cause is crazy. It's madness. You know, now, again, if Trump actually believes that he needs to impose tariffs to bring back industry back to US, bring back manufacturing to US, to ensure that the American get the same treatment which they are giving to other countries, one can make a case for that. But is
Hmm.
this the way you go about it? And the other question which people like us need to ask, we keep talking about American tariffs and how bad they are.
Hmm.
Yeah, okay. If America is imposing tariffs and it's really bad for them, why are then we imposing tariffs? So make
Yeah.
up your bloody minds. If tariffs are good, then why should America not impose them? And if tariffs are bad, then why are we imposing them?
I mean, I think
So
the point is the arbitrariness of these tariffs, right? It's a
exactly.
weaponized tariff system.
So I can understand that you impose tariffs because you want to achieve certain economic objectives. You want to give some
Correct.
protection, but protection cannot be endless. You
Hmm.
have to you have to give some protection up to a point, and then tell people that, okay, fine, we will scale it down, which is what is going to happen. For example, in the EU India deal, there is a graded system of how
Yeah.
tariffs are going to go down. Everybody has enough time to adjust to things, so that gives you a certain degree of predictability of how the policy framework is going to operate. इधर तो कुछ पता ही नहीं है यार. You don't know what is going to happen today, what tomorrow he might get up and say,
So
okay,
how
no,
do
no,
we
not
ha-
today.
but how do we handle it? What do we do?
Nothing. What can you do in some in a situation like this? Because there is nothing settled. But I personally think, uh, I don't know whether it was a smart thing we did by saying that we are going to postpone the trade talks right now. Apparently, in the press release which came out, it was
Hmm.
said that this mutually decided that both sides want to figure out what exactly is happening before they, go
Hmm.
forward with the trade talks. But I
Yeah.
would have imagined this was a good opportunity to, continue with the
To
talks.
basically ask what the hell is going on.
Exactly. Ask what the hell is going on, at least solve some of, or sort out some of the issues, and then keep the actual rates pending,
Yeah.
pending the decision on what the Americans are going to do. But at least start settling some of those issues, and then you
Yeah.
can, go back to the table. But to say that we are not going to negotiate right now, I don't know how much sense it makes, because even out here, ask any businessman who deals with the United States, there's so much of uncertainty. And then, if supposing it takes them a few weeks uh, before there is some degree of clarity on how the Americans are going to levy tariffs or not levy tariffs, uh, you have postponed your negotiations by so much
Yeah.
time. So I don't know if it really makes any sense what we have done, but maybe people who have taken that decision had more information than what I am privy to.
Well, no easy answers. It is a crazy time to be watching all of this, Sushant. Thank you, as always, for your clarity and your bluntness. And one always learns so much from you. Thank you. Great conversation, and hope to see you again very soon. Thanks and take care. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust